Hey guys, another edition of Tuesday Morning Coffee. Today, with great pleasure, I introduce Johnny Spies. Johnny is with a company, or owns a company called ProLift Systems. And what Johnny's company does, I'll let him tell you, but in Rutherford County, probably one of the biggest problems I have on home inspections is either a foundation failure or water under a home. That will get a deal. That will screw up a deal quicker than anything else that I've found. Johnny has a company that specializes in helping folks with that. So, Johnny, just tell us what ProLift does.
Well, what we do is we solve foundation problems and water problems. And when people have issues like what you're talking about, the best thing to do is call either your agent or call us. It's no charge. We'll come out. We'll inspect your home. Tell you what's wrong. We'll leave you a bid, a drawing, and a list of references. And it tells you what's wrong with your house before you put it on the market and have that deal fall through. And I look at every single job. I don't have any salesmen. Right. That way there is no funny business on I need to sell more to make my quota this month. Right. I look at everything so it's an honest bid.
Right. And tell us what's probably the number. I know you kind of work in Rutherford County, yes. Nashville, Davidson, surrounding counties. What's probably the number one issue you see most prevalent when you go out when you get called to look it up?
90% of the time it's cracks in the brick because of the foundation movement.
Okay, so our viewing audience knows when we say cracks in the brick. What are things to look for? What do they look? Are they usually stair step or? Kind of give me an idea.
Yeah, most of the time it's on a corner because that's where your downspout is, which is a water-related issue.
That's where a lot of your load is, too,
that's right.
Okay.
And the corner is technically going to be your weakest point because you've got two sides coming together. And
sure.
Anytime you've got trees too close to the foundation or your downspouts with your backsplashes are usually turned towards your house, and when they do that, it's to keep down the erosion in the yard. The downside to it is it's forcing all the water back in underneath your house.
Okay.
And when it does that, and then keeps doing it over years, it slowly but surely starts to undermine that corner.
Now, I know there's an area in Murfreesboro, kind of the north end, like the old Riverview area, which in a lot of cases is 40, 50 years old, 40 years, 30 years. I know I tend to see a lot of problems over there when I go list an old 1970s rancher. Is there differences in the way they're doing footers today opposed to 30 years ago that makes it less prevalent today in today's homes, or not necessarily? Or
yeah, it is, because nowadays most subdivisions are scraped clear of the topsoil, so they get down to the clay. And then so when they're digging now and putting foundations in, it's all 100% in clay. And not in solid dirt. Where in older neighborhoods like Riverview, usually your foundations are going to be more stable because it's on stable material.
Right. Where
the neighborhood probably wasn't scraped completely clear and using the topsoil somewhere else. So that makes
sense. Let's talk about water.
Okay.
Water under homes. We got a crawl space for whatever reason. When they started building homes around here years ago, they did them on crawl spaces. And when you have a crawl space, you've got an area under your home that makes it nice to get to your plumbing and all those types of things. But if you have water under your home, which we tend to have in Rutherford County, it's a place for it to kind of hang out and create fungus. We're not going to use the four-letter word, bad four-letter word, but fungus and those type of things. Johnny, where does most of this water come from? Because I think there's a big misconception about where water comes from under the homes in Rutherford County.
Yeah, the misconception is it's from the downspouts. And the only way, when you go under someone's house and you believe it's from the downspouts, you can look at the four corners of the block. If it's soaking wet, then the water's wicking through the block, getting in. But 9 times out of 10, it's the water table. Rutherford County, we're close to the water table here, being that we're a lot of clay. Clay it's not permeable, so the water can't get through it. So what happens is when the water table rises, so does the water level under your house. And then once the creeks and riverbeds start to subside, then you'll start to see that water level go back down.
Right.
And the rule of thumb that I always tell people, and this is 18 years of experience, is that if the water gets in, that's fine, as long as it leaves in a timely manner. And my rule of thumb is 2 days. As long as you look in there and there's water, you go back under in 2 days. If the water's gone, then you're fine.
So I guess the big thing is sometimes you're not ever going to be able to prevent the water from getting in. The key is, if it does get in, just have a place, if it's not going down in 2 days, so it can be displaced.
That's
right.
And
how do we displace water?
Codes requires you to have a positive drain now.
Okay.
And even like on older homes, like in Riverview,
sure,
they probably didn't have that as a code back then.
Mm-hmm.
But we always try to do a positive drain to where we can get the water running out by itself. And if you can't do a positive drain because the grade's too high, then we would do an interior French drain, which is a 4-inch sock pipe all the way around the footing,
mm-hmm.
and then put 3 to 4 inches of gravel on it, and then we take that to a sump pump.
Right.
And then people's misconception is, oh, I got a sump pump that's terrible. Well, it actually isn't, because that sump pump probably doesn't cut on 1 to 2 times a day during the hardest rain.
Right.
It's just controlling the water.
Sure. Yeah, I had a house one time that was so flat, Johnny, over on the south end of town, that we had to have 2 sump pumps, one on this end and one on this end, and it did the job.
Well, and you're right, because anything more than 185 lineal footage needs 2 sump pumps.
Gotcha.
One sump pump, that's the max. That's our rule. That's the max that we don't want any more than that on.
Sure,
sump pump.
sure. What are a couple, kind of closing up here, what are a few precautions people can take to, when they're building a home, to prevent a water problem?
The best thing to do is once the foundation's in,
mm-hmm.
is to fill the crawl space up at least 8 inches high with gravel,
mm-hmm.
and to put that positive drain in, because what the rock's going to do is it's going to displace all that water that would be from the water table and force it to where the outside walls, which if it has a positive drain, it's going to have a place to run to.
Gotcha.
That's the best thing to do.
Plus, it's going to keep it kind of a cleaner foundation, a drier foundation.
That's right. And people sometimes have the misconception that when they have that and the inspector comes and pulls back the plastic and it's damp.
Right.
Well, rock is going to stay damp for a long time. That
Sure.
doesn't mean anything.
Right.
It just tells you that the water is staying below the plastic, which is normal.
Well, I tell people all the time, too, the building codes requires you to have a vapor barrier in Rutherford
Yes.
County. Why do they require a vapor barrier?
And the misconception there is it's for radon gas.
Right.
That's what they tell you. You got to have that and crawl space vents. And something else, another misconception is your crawl space vents. Everybody believes that once it gets wintertime, you're supposed to shut them. They actually need to be open during the wintertime, because that's when it's the dampest
right.
underneath your house,
right.
and you're closing all that moisture up. So the rule of thumb, the best rule of thumb is to do is if it gets below freezing and stays below freezing all day and night,
mm-hmm.
that's when you need to shut them.
Gotcha. Okay, never thought about that. Back to foundations.
Okay.
We see a crack. I go outside tonight and I see a crack in my brick. I've seen a lot of cracks. I've seen the hairlines. I've seen it where they're splitting. When do I need to call a guy like you? Is there a certain rule of thumb on that?
Well, if you're putting your house on the market, call us before you do that.
Right.
But if you're just like you said, you cutting your trees back and notice it, I would call anyways, because it's not going to cost you anything.
Right.
And then when I come out, I'll tell you whether it's bad or good. And if it's not bad, we offer the tuck pointing as well. We can fix the mortar
Make
joints.
it cosmetically look
That's
better.
right. We can fix it back.
What is when you go out to a home? What is there a certain width or something that you see that you say, we probably need to go under there and boost it back up? Is there a certain rule of thumb on that?
Yeah, my rule of thumb that I've always followed is 1/4 of an inch. If it's 1/4 inch or less, normal ground
Cosmetic.
movement, just normal.
Right.
And then 1/4 inch or more, it's getting to where it needs to be fixed.
Right. And basically, to fix those, you dig up under the foundation.
That's right.
And what do?
We dig under the foundation by hand. We don't use machinery to tear the yard up. And then we get 2 foot below the foundation, and we put a 25-ton ram underneath it, and then we hydraulically push against your house, which is force a cylinder in the ground.
Okay.
And once that cylinder hits refusal, which is rock normally,
Right.
then we can lift the structure back up.
Gotcha. Man, that's good stuff. Like I said, hopefully you're looking at the bottom of the screen. If you have any issues with foundations, I'm just going to tell you my little testimony. We help a lot of people buy and sell homes, so there's oftentimes we have to call people like Johnny to help our clients. There's a few companies out of Nashville, I'm not going to mention any names, but they advertise heavily, that I promise you they never go to a house where there's not $7,000 worth of problems, whether you have them or not. Johnny's honest. He beats those guys' price by a ton. but he just does it the right way. And if people don't need anything at this time, he just tells them, you don't need it right now. Call me back, if you see any more movement, that type of thing. He's very honest with his clients. He stays busy enough to where I promise you he doesn't need the work. So, and I believe that God has blessed him for staying busy because he treats people right and he does the right thing. So if you have any problems with anything, I highly recommend this guy. He's going to treat you right. He's locally here in Rutherford County, but he does do work all over Middle Tennessee. So, Johnny, thanks so much. That was a lot of good stuff you gave us today. Thank you, buddy. All right, man.